mail your Aunt Brownie house is hot, child.
Oh, Mary house be hot too. I can't do it. I go in there and I just go straight off.
Live.
Okay.
We are now live.
Right. All right. What's going on, everybody? Everybody's doing well. Everybody looks healthy and safe.
Yes.
Can
Yes,
you
we're
believe that
blessed.
this is our 11th virtual book review?
Wow. Wow.
I cannot believe it. Yeah, thought I'd bring that up before we get started. So, for those who are watching us for the first time via Facebook, this is Wind Down Readers, and I'm your host, Takesha Edwards with Blueprint to Events. And tonight we're going to be discussing the book Glory Bishop by Deborah L. King. And for those who are watching us for the first time via Facebook, we are a virtual book club. And what we do is kind of, just to sum it up, we pick novels and discuss themed topics that relates to, everyday life. Some of the topics are relatable. Some of them are just thought-provoking. Nonetheless, we talk about them with each other over a glass of wine with the author and Facebook. And so it's all fun and all good. And so tonight, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my wonderful panel, who this would not be possible without. So first, I'll start with my long distance folks. We'll start with Miss Nene first from Houston. What's going on, Nene?
Hey,
How y'all doing?
happy to be here.
I know, right? We have Miss Marley Ray from St. Louis, sweet St. Louis.
Hey, Molly Ray.
Hey, Molly Ray.
We have Miss Pat all the way from Florida.
Hi, Pat.
And then my fellow DMVers, the DC, Virginia, Maryland area folks. We have Alex, we have Wanda, Kendra, Jay, one of our other residential authors, Steph. All right, and I want to introduce our author for the book tonight, Miss Deborah L. King, all the way from Chi-Town, Chicago. Deborah. So speaking of Deborah, let me tell you a little bit about her. Deborah King has been a writer and a storyteller her whole life. She's published her first book, her first short story when she was 7 years old.
Wow.
If she's not writing, Deborah enjoys cartoons. She enjoys cartoons, cooking, photography, and she's a Trekkie. She likes Star Trek. She was born and raised in Chicago. Deborah has managed to achieve all, not some, not just a little bit, but all of her childhood dreams, and still lives in the area with her husband and her two youngest children. According to her daughter, she has literally aced her life. That has got to be the ultimate compliment from your child. Okay, I like that. I enjoyed, I couldn't wait to read that. I love that so much. And so again, tonight we are going to be reading Glory Bishop. All right. So who is Glory Bishop and what is the book starting out to be? So Glory Bishop lives her life in pieces. At work with her friends, she reads novels, speaks her mind, and enjoys slow dances and stolen kisses with her boyfriend, JT. But at home, Glory follows strict rules and second guesses every step. Though she dreams of going to college and living her life, living like a normal teenage girl, her abusive mother has other ideas. When JT leaves to join the Navy, Glory is left alone and heartsick. The preacher's son, Malcolm Porter, begins to shower her with lavish gifts, and her mother pushes Glory to accept his advances. Glory is torn between waiting for her true love with JT or giving into the overzealous Malcolm. When a stranger attacks Glory on the street, Malcolm steps in to rescue her, and her interest in him deepens. But the closer she gets to him, the more controlling he becomes. Glory must eventually decide whether to rely on others or to be her own savior. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. So, in our traditional Wind Down Readers. This is where we prepare to shout out whatever we're sipping on. So Facebook, go ahead and type in what you're sipping on. Panel, go ahead and get your drinks ready. But I do want to welcome our Facebook crew. We have Sonia Edwards here, Latanya Jones King, Michelle Adams. Let me see who else. Shamel Lowry and Elsa. Hi guys, thanks for joining us tonight. All right, panel. We'll start with you, Alex. What you sipping on?
Nothing fancy tonight because I have to work early tomorrow morning. So
Not a Coke and a smile, Alex. All right, Miss Nene, what you got going on?
A boring cab.
There's no such thing. There's no such thing as a boring cab.
No white Hennessy tonight.
No way. Miss Marley Ray, what are they drinking on in St. Louis?
I got Stella Rosa tonight.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
You know what? It's hard to resist, right?
Yeah.
KB, what you got going on, Kendra?
Oh, I just got a little red blend La Creme.
Oh, okay. Right. It's been a while since I went there. Yeah. All right. Miss Pat, what you have?
Well, tonight I'm just drinking on some Cristalano champagne.
Oh, I don't think I've ever had that.
There's some bubblies for this conversation.
Okay.
Celebrate.
I see you have my favorite portrait in the background. Miss Wanda, what you got going on?
Just a little bit of rosé tonight. I did decide to have a drink.
You had, okay.
Better.
Can't go wrong with a little rosé. Mel?
I am drinking on a sweet red. I think it's a Cardinal. So nothing fancy, but it's good.
Very fancy. I love that rim on that glass too.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome. Steph, what you got going on? Look, I need to hold mine up with Steph because whatever she's drinking, I'm drinking. I don't know what it is. What we got, girl?
We got Miss Pat. We got the sangria. Miss Pat turned me on to this sangria in
Let me know.
Florida last summer.
That means I only can take 2 sips because I've had this before, and let's just say I slept well.
It's sangria like you ain't never had before.
Yeah. Jay?
You know my
Don't
favorite.
surprise me with.
H2O.
You know my favorite.
Oh, you don't know, Jay.
H2O. H2O.
H2O.
That's right.
Yeah.
High quality H2O.
All
I call
right.
it H2O.
Store brand.
What you got
Hey, look.
today?
Hey, look.
Huh?
I said store brand H2O.
Packaged and bottled to serve what it's supposed to do.
That's right.
Miss Deborah King,
Jay, you
what
can at least
what you
put a
got
lime
going
in
on? The last time, you know. Ooh, she got the whole bottle this time. Uh-oh, I think you're on mute.
I got a bottle of Chateau Saint Michel Riesling, and it's,
Ooh.
well, I've got a half a bottle, but
Oh, the party has started.
That is some good Riesling, though.
yes, it is. It really
It's a
is.
very
Yes,
good
it
brand.
is.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, let me see what our Facebook, let me see if anyone in our Facebook group has shouted out what they're drinking. Future Brown, oh, I love that name. She's drinking water. Shamel is drinking coffee. Okay, Shamel, now it is a little bit too late to be drinking coffee. Barbara is having water with lemon. Now, where is the drinks? I want some of the drinks. Now, Deborah Davis has homemade tropical fruit sangria.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Michelle, Adams is having lemonade. Elsa Reed is having Robertson wine sangria. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So I think that's all I see as of now. Let me see if anyone else have brought on. I think that's it. Well, before we get started, I do want to make sure everyone know that we do have a YouTube channel, Wind Down Readers. So I hope you guys go and check it out.
Oh,
All
wow,
of the
okay.
previous videos, yes, have been put, they have been uploaded on our YouTube channel. So you can go check those out and please
Yay.
subscribe and like.
Okay.
And go back and watch the old ones, the old but goody ones. And we also have an Instagram page, and our Facebook page is coming along. So, and if you also want to, you guys that are watching us for the first time, if you want to contact us, you can email us at winddownreaders@gmail.com. and let us know what you think about the platform. What would you like to see coming forward? And also, if you know of any authors you want us to review, drop us a few lines and let us know. And we'll go from there. All right, everybody, let's grab our wine glasses and get ready to jump on this journey, because Deborah is getting ready to take us on a new ride. So cheers, let's take our sip. Okay. So our topics of discussion tonight, again, we're reviewing chapters 1 through 13. Some of the things I want us to think about, the first topic I want us to talk about is, given that it's 2020, and this book is a timepiece. It was started to take place in the 80s. How big of a role should religion and faith play in a relationship? And when I say that, some of you old schoolers, it used to be, it still is for some, very important to be equally yoked when you're in a relationship headed towards marriage. Referring to the dynamic between Malcolm, even Mary, and Glory, how big of a role should religion and faith play in a relationship? And Alex, I'm gonna start with you.
So when I came up with this specific question, I was raised in a Catholic family. My family's very, very Catholic. But because of my upbringing, and then because I had a religion teacher in high school who allowed me to question certain things, I kind of fell out of faith with my faith. So when I was reading this book and I was seeing the conversations that were happening between specifically Herschel and with Glory, about kind of how he was like, you can have your religion, but also understand that there's more to a relationship than just a faith in something. You have to also believe in yourself and support yourself, and you can't just turn to the Bible to be your guide. I think, there's nothing wrong with having a steady religion in a relationship. I'm a firm believer in letting people believe what they want to believe. But I personally don't think it's necessary to have both people devoutly religious for a relationship to work. However, the relationship that we have between Malcolm and Glory is so much based on the Bible and how he uses Bible verses to either defend or condemn things that she does or has done or has happened to her. It can become, and like specifically her relationship with her mother, sometimes when someone is so religious and they don't necessarily know anything different, it can be very damaging to a relationship, and it can become almost codependent.
I think with this one of the things I got out of it was I felt that Malcolm and Mary used, it wasn't necessarily their religion, that was they picked pieces of their religion and exaggerated it to what they wanted to control.
Right.
I was thrown aback. I don't know about you guys, but not to give so much of the book away, because you guys better go pick it up if you haven't read it, was the bathroom scene when she was in the shower and she came home late. It was more of, mom was upset because she couldn't control the situation, but she also sort of used her power of influence with their religion as to say, you're allowing yourself to be open, to be, your behavior is influenced by demons. So she had to cast them out, which was very interesting because her father and her Herschel, she had people in her life that kind of seemed, for lack of better words, a little bit more reasonable. But I saw your hand raised, Mimi.
Am I the only one that pictured Carrie?
No, I did.
Oh my God.
I did.
Oh my God. All I saw was
Carrie
Carrie's
the
mama.
same thing.
Oh, And it got worse from there.
I thought the mother used the Bible and as well as Malcolm it for abuse. That was a tool that they used to abuse. So
Yeah.
Well,
I
control too. Control her.
Yeah, I thought that with your original question, Keisha, with about the religion as far as how important is that in a relationship, I think that is subjective and it depends on who the people are. But in this particular relationship, I agree with Mel. I don't think it's so much as the religion. It's more of it was used as a manipulation tactic. So I don't think it was about necessarily the religion. It could have been anything. It's just what they both decided to manipulate her with. So, and I guess we're gonna talk about this age factor later. So,
yes, please. That's next.
girl, I was like,
yeah, that was the number one problem is that, Malcolm is, I guess according to the laws of Chicago, he technically was not a child molester, or it wasn't statutory rape or whatever you want to call it, but it was highly inappropriate.
Inappropriate.
Yeah.
Can I, and I want, if I can,
Oh, no. I was going to say, I knew someone else had a question with regards to the religion and faith. And I do want to say this religion and faith, I'm only referring to the book dynamic. I don't want to,
Okay.
Well, go ahead, Ms. Pat.
Well, I just wanted to mention that when you're talking about religion and faith in a relationship, oftentimes when people get together and are planning to get married, they will go to a pastor for some type of counseling before they get married. And a lot of times these pastors will kind of turn down marrying them based on the fact that they have different religions, or one is in it and the other one's not, because the feeling is over time, this is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Not a problem right now. You're giddy in love, but over time, it's going to keep showing up.
No, you're absolutely right. Yes, Wanda.
hey, I just wanted to kind of interject on the unequally yoked, but and also the manipulation, because if from what it seemed to me, I do believe in the scripture about being that you should not be unequally yoked, but that doesn't mean you should be perfect, and doesn't mean you should have the same beliefs. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to do everything the same way. But I also think I think that the manipulation went further than just with Glory. The manipulation seems to be the church and the principles of the church more than anything. Because if you think about the hospital scene, the mother was trying to use the situation for the demons and deceit kind of thing. But then Malcolm turned it around for, now are we not trusting God, right? And we're saying that God wanted this to happen. So it's playing off what works best for them at the moment. The Bible says that you should submit it all, but it doesn't say that a man should control. And so all of those things is just real. It seems to me to be for their circumstances and what works best for them. The mother went one path, and now she wants her daughter to go a different. Remember, her path started out to be the same, but she ended up in a different place. And so it's just all of those things. To me, it just seems like it's just manipulation and control, but using the scriptures to do that doesn't necessarily mean that it's just against Glory or for Glory. It's for anything that they do that works best in their favor.
And poor Glory, my heart went out to her, but I want to say I saw your hand, Kendra, go up. No, am I? Okay, yeah. And then Alex, I'm gonna come right to you.
I want to go back, I guess, just like Marley said, from the original question, from this book perspective in the relationship of being unequally yoked. Just in the beginning of this book, I think Glory's she seems to have a better understanding from a religious standpoint than any of them do. Malcolm is preaching from the pulpit for a purpose, which is manipulation. And so I feel like because of all that's going on, and just like Wanda mentioned about the congregation, they all stem from this. And I feel so sorry for her. I'm following the rules. I hadn't overread, but I believe because they're getting ready to, at the end of 13, getting ready to go down south, that cycle had to start from somewhere. And from this relationship standpoint, and in this book, as a sense of religion, I think deeper, because Gloria is always asking the questions. She's seeking for a deeper understanding. I feel like God is really talking to her. I don't know what them other people hearing or what they claim to be perceiving, but she is on the right path for seeking an understanding. But it's so sad that it's a cycle of manipulative scripture throwing and citing Old Testament, New Testament. And even though she's young and considered as a child, she has a better understanding than that than any of them. Somebody need to just grab her and take her and just get away.
But
Herschel got her.
But
Herschel
even
got
with
her.
that, her immature, she does have a better thought process in that, but her immaturity doesn't always lend to her making the right decisions. You know,
Right.
she doesn't. She hears that, she questions it because it doesn't seem right, but
Right.
she then falls for. You know, she allows what other people have told her to control those people to control her thoughts.
Yep, that is true.
Yeah.
I just thought it was very, I don't know, interesting when her mother, and we're going to get there. I'm not going to put the cart before the horse, but we're going to get there. Let me see what my Facebook crew has to say about this. Oh, Alex, you're next, and then the Facebook crew. I'm so sorry.
Well, I think for me, the hospital scene was definitely a really telling moment in the relationship of Herschel, Glory, Mary, and Malcolm. Because Herschel respected the prayer over Glory, and then he removed himself from the situation because he knew that it was, as someone who wasn't necessarily the most religious person, if not religious at all, he was like, I understand this is a dynamic that I'm not a part of, so let me remove myself. But not only did we have that situation happen in the hospital scene, the leading up to that scene, like, just absolutely broke my heart, because I have heard this kind of story so many times where the conversation specifically between Malcolm and Mary, when they are basically going at each other's throats about, Mary's like, if you hadn't done X, Y, and Z, and, let the demons of X, Y, and Z control you, this, you deserve what happened to you because of X, Y, and Z. And Malcolm is saying, Mary, that is not what we teach. That's not what we believe. In that moment, if you think about it, like, right away, oh, it's like, oh, cool, he is defending Glory. But if you really think about it in terms of the context of the rest of that cycle that we were talking about, that was just as manipulative of her as her saying, you deserved what happened to you, because as Glory refers to him as her savior, and then, she gives that specific Christmas present to him that really, really encapsulated that. I really, like, within the context of the story, manipulation isn't happening. Like everyone's saying, it's not just Mary, Malcolm, and Glory. It is that congregation, because that specific scene where the girl, says that I slept with this man, I slept with JT, and he was, he did X, Y, and Z to me, and let's pray about that, and, like, let's condemn him. And then Glory stepping up and being like, I don't really want to say anything, but this is tarnishing his good name and his mother's name and his family's name, by saying, I was with him, we slept in a car all night, X, Y, and Z. We see in that very moment in that congregation where that cycle begins. It began so far in the past that the older people are, condoning the behavior, and then you have the younger people who don't even know, who don't know any better,
and they're defending and following suit. Yeah.
So Glory's naivete can't be blamed on her. It has to go back to where she learned that from.
Now, let me ask you guys this, and before we move on to the next question, I want to make sure I get the comments from our Facebook group. We have Latanya Jones King. She said, "No, you're not. The mother was right out of Carrie." She was making reference to the Carrie comment. Michelle, let me see. She said, "I agree with Alex. You have to know yourself. Unfortunately, she only knew herself as much as she was allowed to know because of her mother." And let's see, I agree. Deborah Davis says, definitely the culture of the church was problematic. And let's see, Cheryl Woodson said, I agree with Alex. To me, it was as if Mary and Malcolm were two demons fighting each other.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
That's
Cheryl.
That's good. That's a good analogy.
That is profound. Okay.
Yes.
So the next topic of discussion I wanted to bring up, the age factor. I know Marley Ray has slightly touched on this. So, again, timepiece, okay, it was taking place in the 80s. And so I want you to think about that particular era in 2020. And let's talk about this 17-year-old Glory. 7-year-old Malcolm.
But Keisha, let's don't say the 80s were not that long ago.
What you talking about?
The 80s is not the 40s and the 50s, Keisha.
I know what you're saying, but you have to admit, I will say, when you were in the 12th grade, you dated a guy in the 12th grade, he was 19 or 18, and you was 14 to 15, it wasn't a problem. Even if you were in the 12th grade and you were 18 and you dated a guy that was 21 or 17 and 21.
Well, we're talking about a 10-year gap.
We're talking 10 years.
I know, guys. I know.
10 years under 18.
Go ahead, Marley.
I think Malcolm and Glory's situation was 10 years, which was excessive. But I wanted to, in reference to the first topic of discussion, with Mary being so centered on her beliefs and morals, how she was so limber when it came to Malcolm, his age, his position, his finances, even when it conflicted.
Godly.
So what do you guys think about that, given the time period? And I know the 80s wasn't that long ago, but I'm just saying.
Why you keep saying that?
You know what?
The 80s are different from 2000.
It was. People were thinking different. It totally was different. It's totally different. Yes, because back in the 80s, and just think about it, this is 2020. So the 80s was 40 years ago. Even though we say that it's not that long ago, it was 40 years ago. So somebody 17 years old going out with somebody 27, 40 years ago wasn't that big of a deal.
Wow.
Okay, I don't know what house.
I'm with you, Marley. I'm with you. That's creepy.
Even in the 70s and I guess when I graduated from high school, there's no way in the world my mother would have let me at 17, 27 years. She would not date or talk about marriage or giving myself to. She would never have to that.
But we know people that got married right at 17 and 18, right out of high school.
But
not to 27-year-old.
Have a
To
lot.
a 30-year-old man?
Yeah,
But he's not 30. He's 27. He ain't 30 yet.
But she's 17.
Closer to 30 than his 20s.
I want to hear from everybody. I'm going to start with Miss Pat. Miss Pat, go ahead.
I'm going to say that it definitely would depend on what was going on in his life at the time. If he was structured in a way that he was going to college, he was doing something productive, and that the parents could see that he was leading their daughter into a better position in life, then I think they would let that go.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, as much as I hate to say it, and now that 2020 I'm awoke, I did have some friends in high school that dated, not necessarily 27, but 25 and 20, 24, 25. Yeah, they did. And they were 18 and 17-year-old in high school. And it was, you knew it was a little older, but it happened. And
Okay.
And then I think someone else had
Did
that.
they, Keisha, one question. Did they mama know?
Right.
Well, you know what? I will say this, Mel. In the people I knew, the relationships weren't that serious. So I'm going to go on a limb and say no.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. I ain't talking about I'm not talking about a 17-year-old girl wanting to date a 27-year-old man. That can happen. But for a mother to endorse it, I don't know about that one.
She pimping her daughter out. That ain't endorsement. She pimping her daughter out from the
whatever you want to
pulpit.
call it. Whatever you want to call it. Yeah,
From the
no mother do
pulpit.
that.
From the pulpit.
Well, first of all, she didn't want to date him.
Yeah, that's right.
First problem.
It was a forced situation.
And her mother really, again, talk about manipulation, trying to let her have what she didn't have. Trying to make her daughter have what she didn't have, what she wanted. A God-fearing man who was in the church, to be a preacher's wife. All of those things that she wanted. And what she was willing to sacrifice her 17-year-old daughter. Because again, she's not even 18. Well, you know, to that point, she wasn't 18 yet. And you think about a 17-year-old who, you know, her first experience was with the boy that she grew up with all of her life for whatever. That was her first experience. And think about all the things that she doesn't know. And along with that, think about how he treated her. He wasn't just a good role model and male figure for her. He was controlling, he was manipulative, he was abusive, he was all of those things that she would allow her daughter to be in just to be what she couldn't be. And that, to me, that is.
We're talking an isolated situation. We're talking, but the question is generally back in the 80s.
Go with Stephanie.
That's all right. We're going with Steph right now.
Go with Stephanie. Stephanie.
But you know what, Mel?
You wouldn't let your 17-year-old girl.
No, we're talking 40. We're talking 40 years ago.
I want to ask you a question.
Okay, there you go, Jay.
Come on, Jay. Come on, Jay.
Come on. The decade shouldn't matter. The question is the right or wrong. So when back in the 20s and 30s, when people's aspirations were to leave home and get married, do whatever, you're talking about a point in time in history and in a decade where you know, it's just more dynamic. It's not where you have to settle to be. This is about a culture in time. It's not necessarily a decade in time.
I think ladies were still settling in the early 80s.
Even at 23, I would not be in favor of my 23-year-old daughter dating a 35-year-old man. I just don't.
I just want to say.
Go ahead, Jay. What?
All I want to say, do anybody in here have a 17-year-old daughter?
I have a 19-year-old.
Okay, imagine if she brought home a 27-year-old guy and said, "Hey, Mom, I want you to meet Ray Ray."
40 years ago. We're talking 40 years ago.
I don't think it matters how long ago it's been, because the minute he met her and he said, "How old are you?" and she said 17, that's it. It's over.
You know what?
Conversation.
But that may be true, but he may be 27, but he got a 19-year-old brain.
Yeah,
oh my God, that's true.
That is true. Yes,
I agree with that.
But I think even though it was 1983, I can clearly remember 1983.
Yeah, me too.
They had statutory rape out in 1983.
That was my next thing.
But they didn't have sex.
That's not common. Now,
they're not supposed to be having sex.
They didn't in the book. They
did not. But here's the thing: even though we're talking about, was it common for someone to date a 17-year-old back in the 80s? And my answer is that there were statutory rape laws out in the 80s. So I would say that no, that wouldn't be common. They were put in place for a reason. So back in the 20s and 30s or whenever, there were no statutory rape laws. So yeah, I would say it was common. But in the 80s, I don't think that was something common. You would have definitely been in trouble if someone's parents reported you for trying to date their 17-year-old daughter. I don't think it was common. Let me say, not where I live. Let me say that it was not common.
I was going to say, does it depend upon the territory?
Maybe
because
so.
Certain areas.
In the deep South, they probably would have let it go. But in the deep South, they would have let it go. But I don't agree. I mean, and I'm from the South, but I don't agree with that. But the way he moves, though, Marley, if it's around a big crowd, he won't let her out the car and walk her to wherever.
No.
Because he know that's frowned upon.
Exactly.
Nobody knows, but her friends, her best friends know about him. And the special thing that she has as a mother knows. But I don't, at this point, the father's not even clear with it. So
giving away too much of the book.
Well, he's moving. He's moving a little shiesty. He's being secretive. He's being secretive.
Even with the door she was going in, remember? I'm like, yeah.
He's being very secretive. So he know what he doing is suspect.
And I want to put a point with that, but I want to make sure I get our Facebook group and see what their saucy opinions are. So Deborah Davis said, I believe it depends on how you raise that age difference would look different in each home. Michelle Adams said, I had clients in that situation when I did case management less than 10 years ago. It still happens. It's definitely not isolated. Cheryl Woodson said, but hundreds of years, families sold, and she put in quotations, their daughters to old men for money, power, political alliances, status, and let's see here, and land. From Mary's perspective, she was making sure Glory would marry up to the status of first lady and a major lady, and first lady of a major church. Therefore, Malcolm may also have felt immune to the jailbait thing because he was the pastor's son. And Barbara Crum said she doesn't think it was common. In the 80s, she didn't think it was common, and Michelle Abrams had agreed. Now, I will say this, moving on into the next topic, and this is what some of your answers are kind of leading into it. Does society, and I want you to think, then and back then, does society teach us to bend the respect rules in relationships when it comes to money, sex, power, and respect? Do we tend to excuse certain behaviors and abuse in relationships when a person has money, position, and power?
Yes.
She said yes.
Yes, absolutely. That's unanimous right there. That's unanimous.
That's unanimous.
But Keisha, can I also say though, again, I just want to clear up the age thing. 17 and 27 is a big difference between 27 and 37. Or 37 and 47, because you're at different places in your life. I'm talking about a child, because at 17 she couldn't vote or drink. 17 is what that's why it's such a challenge for me. Age, no, it depends on where you are in your stage of life.
No, and I agree.
I just want to make that clear.
No, and I agree.
That's my point.
I did want to say that my mindset back then, that's why I didn't see anything wrong with it, because I was a child myself.
Just a baby.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, girl, you dating an older dude. I would have taken off running if an older 27-year-old guy asked for my phone number, because I knew then. But yeah, I see what you're saying as an adult now. It's like, oh, super no. But Alex, I'm going to go to you. I know you had your hand up.
So, so this is the question. So in the psych field, we look at this specific conversation a ton, especially when it comes to abuse, domestic assault, all that kind of thing. So I'm younger. I can't really speak for the 80s, but in terms of the research that I've done, in some cases, actually, in a lot of the cases that I read, in abuse of young women and young men as well, kind of going back to the comment that was made on Facebook where mothers or families would sell their child to someone for a status change, basically. It's almost a very medieval kind of idea, where if you see a family that is a little bit more well off, you're going to try and get your child to date that person and then marry that person, because that then looks better on you as a family. I will have to say, like, nowadays, I don't think that's something that would fly. I think there may be some cases where people do kind of bend the respect boundary of, like, oh yeah, he can talk to me this certain way, or I can be treated this certain way just because of this. But at the end of the day, and this is something that I'm a huge proponent of, nothing can ever allow or condone disrespect of any kind. It doesn't matter about the power, it doesn't matter about the wealth, it doesn't matter about status in society. If someone is mistreating you, and this is something that even Glory kind of realizes throughout this throughout these first couple chapters, is he thinks he can get away with treating me this way just because he's the pastor's son. And that's something, you know, that's a conversation that starts at home. If you're, for example, for her, if her mother is teaching her that she needs to give herself to Malcolm as a gift, basically, and do whatever he says, there's your problem. It starts right there. The mother encouraging the daughter to allow herself to be disrespected by somebody just because they have a position of power.
But do you think, in answering your question though, do you think, we know all that it's wrong, we know it's not okay, but I'm thinking of, you know, in situations where if someone has more resources, they may allow someone to treat them a certain way, because it's sort of like a, you know, you picking your poison per se. He has a lot of money.
Well, look at the celebrities.
Yeah, that's exactly
the celebrity situations that we have gone through. The artist who is really in prison now. One, that's because mothers allowed their daughters to, you know, engage with him. He's not the only one. There have been others, and it's because of trying to make it come up. The resources. He's going to make me a star. And, you know, it's not just, actually, it's just people in general, not just younger ones. You know, the older ladies have done the very same thing. You do allow, you allow the disrespect to happen because you're thinking you're going to get something bigger and better, or somebody's making these promises to you and you're selling your respect. Regardless, either your parents are selling it for you or you're selling it for yourself.
You know,
go ahead. I'm sorry, Wanda.
No, I was just gonna say, Steph, your point's a good point. I think about the fact too that this is, you know, some of us would say this is almost worse because they're using the word of God to be their tool for the manipulation.
Yes.
Others have used the money, the fame, or whatever. They're using the scriptures to justify the behavior, and I just think that that's a little.
It was rough. Yeah.
It was definitely a hard pill to swallow to read that. Yes, Miss Pat, I'm sorry.
I actually, you know, I know we're just, you know, done like 10 chapters, but this mother, I'm kind of curious as to why she is so overly religious. And at some point, I read that all of her other children died.
Yeah, in the beginning, it did say that, Miss.
But I don't know why. Now, and Daddy is not around, but Daddy seemed worldly because he took her for Halloween and Christmas and whatever, you know, took Glory around. So what caused Mama to jump into that boat? Because it appears to me that she wasn't that way if she was married to a man that was worldly. And all of a sudden, all right, Deborah, we know you know. All right.
No, go ahead. Marley, I'm gonna go to you, then the Facebook. I'll get you because I want to make sure we get the Facebook in on this too, as well.
Okay. Well, the one thing I wanted to mention was that I definitely agree with what you said about you know, money and power being a factor in how people will allow someone to treat them. But I also wanted to make mention is that, you know, Glory is not even though she's naive, she's not necessarily innocent in everything, because Glory is allowing him to do things because that's her way of getting out the house.
Yes.
So Glory is not
Boom.
crazy.
Yes.
You know, she knows, like, okay, I'm gonna take a little slap here and take a little slap there. But I'll be able to go to the mall. I'll be able.
But I'm having fun.
Didn't hurt that bad. So she definitely understands that it's wrong, but she does not want to. She knows that he allows her a sense of freedom, so she's able to do whatever she wants to do. So she doesn't want to go back in that house. So that's what she like. If I got to take a slap here or there, then I'm gonna do it to get out the house.
Baby,
she's not. She's not naive, I would say.
Yes, Alex, I'm gonna promise I'm gonna get you, but since I said I was gonna hit the Facebook group, let's see. Michelle Adams says she accepted abuse as love because that's what she was taught from her mother. Cheryl Woodson says sometimes it's about the status and resources. Often it's about not loving yourself and never realizing that you are worth being treated well. She also says rich, well-educated, externally powerful women are in abusive relationships too.
Yeah.
Deborah Davis said Celine Dion now comes to mind. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and Michelle Adams also said it makes me think of the movie Good Fences. Wow, with regard to money and abuse. Alex, I know you had your hand up.
So going off of Marley Ray's comment about she was guilty in her own way about allowing him to do certain things. So off the bat, yes, definitely looks like, you know, she is taking advantage of the situation. She's, you know, going out with him because it lets her out of the house. But we also have to remember that's also how codependency begins. So if you are allowed freedom by your abuser, you become, and sometimes it starts at small things, like you know, you get to go to a diner that you haven't been able to go to in a while. It can get bigger to things like going to the mall, and then it can get big, really big to that person, your abuser, fighting your mother for allowing you to do certain things, wear certain things because it pleases them. So, I mean, as someone who has a background in psychology, reading the first 13 chapters of this book just reminded me a lot of what I studied in school about abuse and how codependency works, but also just reminded me of a relationship that I was in. So it is a very interesting conversation because for an outside eye, you know, for anybody really, because I ran this situation by a friend of mine who has no experience with abuse, domestic assault, anything like that. What do you think of the situation? Like, well, I mean, she shouldn't have done what she did, because if she hadn't done it, then she wouldn't have gotten what she did. And with a codependent relationship, the abuser is the one who has all the power, and the person that is being abused sometimes doesn't realize that they are being manipulated as much as they are. They could see the freedom of leaving their house as actual freedom, because they get to say, like, oh, this person's allowing me to leave the house. My mother is allowing me to leave the house with this person. But what that really starts ingraining is oh, I can only leave the house with my mother's permission to go with this specific person.
And I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think, you know, when it comes down to it, Mary was just as abusive towards Glory as Malcolm, but Malcolm was
absolutely
a little smarter in how he did it, because he would slap her face and then like lightly touch her face or chin to bring it back up and say, I'm sorry I had to do that to you. You know, I love you, whatever. That's like the definition of a codependent abusive relationship.
And I think that was convenient too, because I think it was convenient for him to find a 17-year-old because she has the mindset to think about her freedoms and resources. That's what a child does. But a grown woman at 27 don't have to worry about mama letting her go outside. If you hit her, you'll get a totally different response. So I think it was calculated that he had to find a child a child mind so that he can gain control. But I do want to ask Deborah King, and put her in the hot seat for a minute. What's your take so far? Like, oh my gosh, this book is so layered with so many topics of discussion. We can go all night with this, but up until this point, I know it's going to be hard for you because you're the author. Up until this point, cutting off at chapter 13, what was your mindset when you were creating Malcolm and Mary in particular, and Glory in this, relationship battle over Glory dynamic?
Well, Malcolm, it originally started as a story about an arranged marriage. And Malcolm was supposed to be just a dirty old man with twirling mustache, regular plain old villain. But the characters started talking to me and making themselves a lot more complicated than I originally planned.
Wow.
Mary has a backstory. She did have 5 kids die. And unfortunately, that's in another book, so I can't really talk about it.
Okay.
That's fair enough.
Okay. She does have a backstory, and so does Malcolm.
Okay.
What was going through my mind was this poor 17-year-old girl who is so repressed, and she's not really scared of the world. She has to pretend that she's scared of the world in order to survive in her own house. I just wrote the story that Glory told me. I don't know where it came from. It's just the story started coming to me, and I started writing it.
Yeah.
I want to know where JT is. I'm like, JT, really? I was like, really?
Mel. That you bring it up. So that you're leading into the next question. I want Pat to start this one off. Me and you are on the same wavelength here. So Miss Pat, I want to start with you with the comparison, because both guys, JT and Malcolm, both have their flaws. Right now, the microscope is on Malcolm. In the beginning, we heard, a little bit of introduction about JT, but right now I know it's focused on Malcolm. But the comparison of the two guys, poor Glory has to, that her two fellas, let's say, per se. Miss Pat, in your comparison of JT and Malcolm, what do you got to say towards that?
Okay, so actually I got this out of some pages that I bookmarked, and I'm comparing Glory's two guys. JT liked to talk about the future. Malcolm talked about the present. JT's basketball career ended when he joined the Navy. At 27, Malcolm was finishing Bible college and he was the youth minister. JT knew all about the neighborhood and dreamed of seeing the world. Malcolm knew the world and wanted to save the neighborhood. JT was flexible about God, but Malcolm was passionate about God.
Yeah, so those are her two boos.
But that's the,
But you know what?
Both boos.
But and so when I read that, Miss Pat, when I read those comparisons, my thought was, I kind of questioned whether Malcolm was passionate about God.
Thank you.
Good point. Malcolm found a way to utilize his knowledge of the Bible. And that's what I'm not going to say his love of God. I'm going to say his knowledge of the Bible.
Yeah.
To manipulate things and to control things and to be his, to be the crutch that he used or the source he used to do the things that he did. To do manipulation, to do his control, to do his abuse, that he used for that purpose. So when I was listening to the comparisons that you're talking about, again, a 17, 18-year-old and a 27-year-old, that the comparison by yet a young girl who has not been allowed to be to express herself, even though she may have read things and do whatever, she still had to confine all of that because that wasn't right in the eyes of her mother, and her mother would abuse her because the sparing a rod is one thing, but beating with an extension cord to blood is something different.
Okay.
And use that to be, kind of her her defense for what she was doing, for what was happening. So I don't know that her analogy, I mean, she saw a little boy and then she saw a grown man. And those are so different. That life is different. And the points that they were so different. So I don't even know if it was a fair comparison because she didn't know, Malcolm was more like her daddy. And, she thinks
Herschel was a good teacher.
He was a good big brother. He definitely
Herschel
he's definitely
had her under his wing and all the things she learned through reading and so forth. But what I just read to you was not my analogy.
No.
We knew that was in the book.
Right?
Oh yeah, no. I know that. I was trying to say when I read that. I started thinking, I don't know that I would describe them like that person.
What were you gonna say, Nene? I saw your hand up, Nene.
Oh, no. What I had thought about was, for some reason, I know there's a backstory Deborah said about, Mr. Man, because I just didn't like him. But I felt, for some reason, I felt like he went to prison. And because she asked him, how did he know so much about the Bible, even though she, in her mind, she had already said he speaks out of turn and uses the Bible in different analogies. He doesn't use the scriptures the way they're written. And she asked him, how did he know about the Bible? And he never talks about his previous life. And he referred back to when he was about 15 years old. So my thought was somewhere between 15 and 27. He went to prison. And what happens in prison? All of them and I'm sorry, that's what I saw, y'all. And he started reading, he read the Bible and he's using it in the concept of now he's out and he's trying to do better or whatever. But his past life is starting to kill with him. So I saw him. He's manipulative and he's controlling, but I saw it's something there. I can't wait to read the next book, Deborah, but that's where I just saw him. He was in prison. I'm sorry.
So Nene has
he set up that rape situation.
I was going to say
he set it up too. I believe that too. Miss Pat, I agree. Miss Pat, I agree.
He set it up too.
Me too. Me too.
I was like, all of a sudden he's there.
He came in like a hero.
Yeah. What a creep.
Yeah. Here comes the doctor now. Whoa.
I know.
What Alex say?
But because she's still a child, and when they were at the mall, and these girls have grown with her because she's a senior. She's been with them through freshman year, and he's sitting back once again. It's like a panther. You scoping and you praying, and these older men love these younger women because they know they hadn't seen these young girls. They hadn't seen anything then, and it's easy to manipulate the young. So I can imagine. He can't be at the club, I guess, because he's a preacher's son, to send 3 ladies drinks. But you can send 3 milkshakes. And Christy's exact words was, this is either awesome or crazy as hell.
It was crazy as hell.
And then it's kind of like Marley said, she knew what, Glory knew what she was doing, but it's like, do I want to be in prison with my mom and take blood lashes, or do I want to be on work release or supervised probation?
I don't think she understood the ramifications either.
No,
I don't think she could see that.
Everything costs, but when she with Herschel, she got her sanity. She's free, and she's growing. She's 17. It's just like everybody that was ultimately right there in her life besides her just wasn't any good for her. Because when it got to the rape scene, I agree with Miss Pat. I thought it was a setup, and I closed it. I don't even want to read anymore. I was like, I don't even want to read it. I'm serious. I was like, I'm done. I'm done with this book. I just wait for the next one. I was about to email you, Deborah, and was like, thank you. I know you got some more books. I'm going to try something else. Because I was done.
Can I ask you what? I'm thinking about the background and how all of this is set. So I guess my question to Deborah would be, why the church? I mean, because you think about us as people and that church is our foundation, right? But you also think about that there's one where people are leaving the church because of judgment, because of the lack of forgiveness and all of that. So why did you choose the church to be there? Because to be their background, their foundation.
When I first started writing the story, and I started writing it in 1992.
Oh, wow.
It was a young lady getting dressed to go to a party and hearing her mother's voice telling her she was evil. And it just, I grew up in church and went to church with girls whose mothers told them they were evil.
Wow.
And that's about it.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have in one of my old apartment buildings, there was this little, well, she was about 12 or 13. I don't think she was abused to the point of glory, of course, but her mother, and I'm gonna go on a limb, would everything that wasn't allowed in her house was because of their religion per se. Skirts, she had to wear skirts all the time, no makeup. And that's fine, you know, if that's what, you know, I'm not knocking anything or anyone's choices or anyone's religious beliefs. But instead of saying this is what we do and others do stuff differently, she was being taught that it was wrong, like people were wrong or evil if they participate. Yeah, I'm looking at your eyes, Keisha, if they participated in it. But she would, I never forget when I would see her, and you know me, I'm from the South, I speak to everybody. And I would say, hi, how you doing? She would automatically look at her mom. After her mom said hi, she would say hi back to me. And at first I didn't think anything of it because I was like, you know, people are creepy. Maybe her mom told her don't talk to strangers or whatever. I get it. Yeah. But even I remember one time we were walking down the steps and she was going up and I was going down. And I said, hey, how you doing? He waited until she got so far from me. She said, hello. I said, girl, just hang in there till you get 18.
You should call CPS. No, I'm just kidding.
I was just like, hang in there, girl. It's gonna be all right.
That's if she's not put in a forced relationship and have to marry.
Yeah.
Don't date Malcolm, girl. Malcolm called you don't date.
Well, you know what I think also is that sometimes when we use the church as the foundation, the background, it means that not that it means that, but the church carries more weight. So just to say, because that's not what we do, doesn't weigh as much as because that's not what the church does, or that's not what we do in our religion.
Yeah, but do you think it's interesting though that all of those things were demonic? So lipstick, short dresses, hair, earring, all of this thing. But when she got ready to go out for her date, how did she?
Yes.
Yeah. So all of a sudden it became approved. I mean, it was the right thing to do, but it's wrong in attracting a man, but it's right to keep a man. I mean, it just seems so odd to me.
Well, how often are our folks guilty of using scriptures in the Bible to make what we're doing right? But when we don't want it, it's wrong. But when we need it, we will take a scripture and make it mean whatever we need it to mean.
We'll bend it. Yeah.
You really do. You modify it, the meaning, so that you feel good about what it is that you're doing, and you justify. Like, if you're just going out and you got on the short skirt and the makeup, then no, that's demonic. But when you're trying to snag the preacher's son, you need to put on that short skirt and that lipstick.
No, the form-fitting dress. It doesn't have to be.
Oh, the form-fitting dress and the lipstick. And that's just another means of using it to fit whatever it is that you need at the moment.
And you can go out on a school night for a special day on a school night.
Okay.
But you can't have a candy apple.
I'm
telling you,
Oh, you
I would
can
have
have
been
a
staying. I would have been
handout.
staying with Christy or one of them girls. I'd have definitely been out.
I know. I saw
I've been living at the beauty shop. I've been staying in the back
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
beauty
I would have
shop.
stayed with Herschel. I'm like, can I move over there?
Yeah, yeah.
I saw your hand, Alex.
So I want to go back to Herschel because honestly, like, Deborah, if you're ever going to write a spinoff series, I would love to have a backstory of just Herschel, because the car ride that he took with Glory through the different neighborhoods and such, and when he was explaining, like, I lost friends to the AIDS crisis, and people always say it's, you know, it's white gay boys who have AIDS, and they're the only people who are actually getting, but then they vilify Black people who have AIDS and everything like that. Like, as a gay person, like, I sat reading specifically his interactions with Glory, and you know, it's I mean, something that we've all said is, like, her relationship with Herschel is the best relationship she has going through, at least until this point.
I agree.
Yeah, I loved Herschel.
Me too.
So
yeah, I love Herschel.
Love me some Herschel.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Herschel's conversation with her about Glory's relationship with Malcolm was almost haunting, because he was telling her, like, oh, he's abusing you, girl. Like, he is taking advantage of you. Like, your mother is condoning this behavior because she wants you to be the first lady of the church. Like, you need to realize that. I think my favorite scene was when it was like, do you love him? He loves me, but he told me that I'll learn to love him. That's a codependent relationship. And in that scene, you know, I was like, he is literally telling her, girl, you got to get out, because if this is where it's starting out, and, you know, a few light slaps on the face, getting to harder slaps on the face is going to be worse than that. So I just wanted to say, like, Herschel is such a beautiful character.
Yes.
In general.
He really is. I love Herschel. I do.
Me too. Oh, if Mel loves him, everybody loves him.
Yeah, right, because you know.
I know. Mel.
Yes, Mel. Thank you, Mel. Thank you.
You know, I hate everybody, right?
He brought
We love some Herschel.
He brought tears to my eyes, because I was in a situation where I had someone like Herschel who made me realize that I was not in a good situation. And reading about Herschel and, you know, fully realizing him as a person in Glory's life, and how much, I guess, presence he has in her life, because she says it herself, she missed her nights at the club, at the salon. And like that relationship, like I'm sorry, I can't. Like,
education.
It's such a beautiful relationship between
education.
And that exactly.
Herschel is real. I mean, you know, it's your mother that takes you to the clinic, right? It's your mother that tell, you know, that knows you've done something you shouldn't have, but wants to make sure you're protected. And you know, the things that he did for the community, and like he said, what he did when he lived in New York, and then he went to California, and what he's doing for the neighborhood now. It's just he's just, you know, making Christmas baskets, making sure he can satisfy the church ladies with their perfumes along with everybody else. I mean, he just has a heart of gold. And who, you know, pound cake. He was hurt. You know, she said, who did she call?
Yeah.
She pretended she called everybody, but she called her mother, and then she called Herschel. And
she called Herschel.
Exactly.
She gotta call him first. Call him first.
That's who she should have called.
No, I would always call him first.
Yeah. But you guys, guess what? I forgot. I have some of Herschel's products. See, I got some pound cake.
What you got, girl? What you got from Herschel?
It's Herschel's pound cake lipstick.
Do you have a picture of it? Do you have it? Oh my God! Look at that!
Herschel's a real person.
Yeah.
And then he got some collard greens.
No,
sisters got to smell like they're cooking all the time.
Now I will
say,
and
I love Herschel.
I do too. I wanted to say, since we're talking about Herschel, Deborah, I tried to go back and read, and I think maybe it was a busy week, and maybe I got distracted. That pregnancy test, what in the world? I couldn't catch what was going on. I was trying to follow, you know.
A long time ago,
the
when
beauty shop is.
pregnancy tests first came out.
She don't know,
There
right?
was,
She don't know.
yeah,
don't know enough about
you would have
that.
been a baby. But
Okay.
they were, you had to put 3 drops of pee in this little vial and shake it up, and then you sit it on this
You had
rack
to
that
wait,
was over a mirror, and then you wait a couple of hours, and if the brown stuff turned into a ring, you were pregnant.
Mm.
Okay, how long ago was this?
That was in
This
the
was
80s.
in the early
It was in
80s.
the 80s.
No, it was not.
40-some years ago.
No, that was
Before-
not in the
this is
80s.
The Daisy 2,
Available to
the
sign.
Daisy and Daisy 2 pregnancy tests, because
I'm
this
about
was
to
before
Google.
there was pee sticks.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Wow. I read that
Wow.
book over and over because I was like, wait a minute, I'm missing something here.
Yeah, old
No, you're not
pregnancy
missing
tests,
anything.
you did not pee on the stick.
Oh, well,
I
I
could
Follow
wouldn't
it,
know.
Deborah. I can follow it.
Look,
Yeah.
Wanda,
Okay.
I wouldn't know whether it was in the 80s or the 90s. I wouldn't know.
Of course you wouldn't.
Oh, I like the way you added that in. I mean, it threw me off, but I like the way you added that in because it caught my eye. I tell you, I read those spaces over, and I was like, wait a minute, I don't think I caught it. Let me go back. That was interesting. So I do want to talk before we end. I do want to talk about, you know, JT and his abandoning glory. Even though we don't know yet, I would love to hear your predictions. And what do you think will happen next? I'm hoping JT will come back in chapters 14 through 26. I got to get JT to come back. And I don't know if I want him to come back because I want to see how Malcolm acts once he has someone on his chair. Look at Kendra's eyes.
What? You want
I
to see
want him to come back and
how?
explain where he's been for the last 8 chapters, not 10 chapters, 11 chapters.
What you saw when they were in church, and she said,
the mama's taking it.
Say that again. I think you breaking up a little
I said,
bit.
I think he's been writing her letters and the mama has been taking them.
color purple. Yeah.
Ooh.
Color purple. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he has them.
Pat, and Facebook, let me know what you think too. Yes, Miss Pat.
Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. Now, when she went over on the west side and she met Alan.
Oh yeah. Right.
At Grandma's store.
Yes.
She sort of like saw JT in Alan.
Yes.
That's
Which
because he wasn't an old man.
Well, JT was unique where she lived, but he was the same in the west side. And that's where JT was from. So I'm wondering if she's seeing, if she's not sure really what JT is, when you could compare him to the other guys on the west side. Same cologne, say the same stuff, nothing different.
Same
She
age.
ain't been nowhere. She's 17. She ain't been nowhere.
That's right. They all should look like that because they 17.
Exactly.
They all should look like that. That's what they supposed to look like.
But it opened her eyes that she's now seeing JT in a different human being. So
you buy my girlfriends.
Okay.
And pierce
One
my
more thing.
ear.
I love how you describe Malcolm as just being brown.
Yes,
right. She was just like, he's just like, it was like she feels nothing. And I'm like, I said, that was the perfect description.
It is. It spoke volumes about him. Yeah, he's just brown.
Come on, none of us liked him after that. We couldn't even find him being attractive if you just described him as brown.
Right. She just
the same color as his shoes. His shoes.
Right. But then after he saved her, which is why I thought he set it up, but maybe it come to find out that he's just creepy and he's following her around.
Right.
That's why I thought he set it up, because I'm like, she was like, he's brown. And I was like, yeah.
And you can buy earrings and milkshakes if you living in a church apartment. I mean, it's so not impressive.
He don't live there.
No, he's by his daddy.
Yeah.
But remember,
we understand.
He's driving a Cadillac or a Deuce and a Quarter. And He got
old
all those things and
it ain't new. It's
know,
old.
Such a
It's
Bama.
old,
Such a
and his
Bama.
girlfriend said white walls, gangster,
I was like,
white walls.
such a Bama. I was like,
It's an
diamond in the
antique.
back. A
what a Bama.
Yeah.
Yeah, drop down top and the
With white walls, I was like, oh.
I'll meet you at the popcorn machine.
I just want, I really need JT to come back. Not to force, not to change the narrative.
I'm gonna need JT to come back too.
I
One more thing.
I mean, he got
Deborah,
some explaining to do.
I like how you slipped that smack in there. I was like, wait a minute, I had to go back. I was like, did he just smack her?
Right. You're right. See that?
Did he just slap her?
No.
I went back and read that entire page again. I said, wait a minute.
Tina Turner.
But you know what, Mel? When the
It was
smack
snuck
happened,
in there.
when the smack happened, that's when I said, oh, I have to remember she's 17. I had to keep going back on myself saying, uh-oh, she's 17. Because I would have clocked him. You would have been down.
She had been being abused by her mother, so she was used to
that's true.
being abused.
Because of my age and my experience, I had to keep going back saying, oh, she was 17. I had to go back to that time to know, to remember.
But you know what, though, Miss
You guys were shocked. I wasn't
I
shocked.
love how that was snuck in there, Deborah. It was just so smooth. It was
he
like
kept
she's
squeezing her
carrying the
wrist.
book bag. He slipped. Her book bag fell on the ground, and she was like, "That's what you get." And he was like, "Pow!" I was like, "What?"
But you gotta think about.
Oh my god! I was like, "Oh my god!"
But do you
Unbelievable.
think about where abuse comes from, though? It's not even so much about the age difference. It's about how you accept it when it happens to you.
Right.
How you continue
You're
to
right. Absolutely.
make excuses for it. How you continue to make it part of it's okay.
Yep.
It hurt
Yep.
that bad. It
Yes.
whatever. Until you at the point that you do take something and knock somebody out or shoot them and kill them. Or you continue to live like that, or it ends up hurting you. One of the, killing you. It's
Right.
one or the other.
Yeah.
It was instilled in her early.
It was very early because even when her father wanted to give her, and I wouldn't, I think he was described as worldly. I wouldn't consider that. I think he was human, and he did things, and he helped her to grow, tried to help her grow up like little kids do. You can't to force religion and to force behaviors are one thing. The other is to teach.
Yeah.
And she wasn't in a teaching environment. She was in it's good or bad. There was no in between nowhere. And some of us live in lives like that it's either good or bad, and then we don't know how to balance the difference out. Which is why Alex can stay gainfully employed and other people through his having studied minds and behaviors and stuff is why we have what we have today, is because people are that balance is not there.
Sure.
That therapy is needed. It is definitely needed.
You know what? We have driven Deborah to finish up autumn.
We see you, Deborah.
Deborah is like
turning it up.
Right. I didn't. But I definitely don't want to ignore our Facebook family. Let's see what they say here. Let's see. Michelle Adams said she was used to that, and I hope that she grows out of believing that abuse is love. LaTanya Jones King said, I said to myself, oh, she was just saying to herself, did he just slap her? I think that's what I said. And I will say this, I was anticipating the abuse because they weren't being sexual. She's 17, he's 27. And forgive me if I offend anyone when I say this, but I'm like, well, what are you getting out of this young chick? If you're not sleeping with her, you're just hanging out with her. I mean, you really can't technically hang out with her. What do you do other than controlling her? What benefit is she to you?
That's what an abuser loves to do. That's what he loves to do. Control. That's better than sex.
Yeah, and his ego.
And it was his ego. And that's why when the abuse, I was like, is it coming or, because if it's not, I totally don't understand. Yes, Alex.
I just want to say, I think what he got out of her was a way to show that he was more godly than her mother. Because the number one, her mother and him had fights about was religion and the faith and how they both used the Bible against Glory and really each other, if you think about it. Like we go back to the scene in the hospital. They're throwing things back and forth at each other, and then he goes to turn to his father for support. I mean, it was for support. And at the end of the day, Glory is just there to be there. Like she's quote unquote happy to be there, because the dynamic that is like the fire is between Malcolm and Mary, because we don't know necessarily why Mary became so godly. Honestly, I think it's because she lost 5 kids and a husband, and she realized, like, what did I do in my life to deserve all of this? Let me turn to God, turn to my religion, and turn to my congregation, who, and from what we've seen, is not really a good influence on anybody.
No. Or she has Munchausen. I don't know.
Oh! I mean, I wouldn't necessarily go as far as saying that, but I would say, like, Mary and Malcolm have probably some of the most heated arguments about stuff than any other character in the book. I am thoroughly excited for JT to come back and put him in his place.
Yeah, I kind of want to. I want them to throw some paws on each other, but that's just
let's see what's going to happen with that.
Yeah.
That's going to see what happens. Anybody else have any predictions before we?
I just hope that Glory is completely become an adult to a point that Herschel has schooled her and she's ready for whichever decision she has to make. That's what I want.
I say Glory needs a therapy.
Well, I hope that Glory votes for Glory. That's what I hope she votes for.
Yeah, me too.
I hope she votes for Glory.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Happens, but
do what you need to do for you and not let people control your life. And I think she's halfway there.
Yeah.
She really is.
She's only 17 right now. Let's hope by the time the book ends.
But she looks out for herself.
Didn't
she reads, she listens, she follows through on things. So I think she's pretty good about that.
Didn't Herschel tell her to do things for her?
Yeah, that's what she said. She did, Alex. She said that.
You need to do things for you, not because someone is telling you to do them, but because you want to do them.
And she said, and he also stated that, some women like that, but hence you're not a woman, you're still a child, So I keep saying she needs therapy, but Herschel is giving her some really good life lesson therapy. I just tell you, if you would look, and I'm just going to talk about religion from this relationship in this book, who would want to be involved in it? If you were at that congregation and they really giving God a bad name for that standpoint of this relationship, because God is loving. He doesn't punish us that way. But if you feel like maybe God took your children, like, but what have you given God to deserve today? So, but I'm talking about from the relationship standpoint. I don't want to get up there from just the book. And it's like, even she knows it, because she said, I don't really think that's what that scripture was referring to, was a pair of earrings. And then he's so controlling the advice. Remember in the early book, the early part of the book, when she gave him the advice on how the people that left the church are feeling judged and criticized, he took it and made it his own. And then the very next time they talked about it, that's when he grabbed her wrist. Like, I know her. And he didn't actually, she asked him, how did you learn the Bible? He never said he read it. He said he listened to it on tape.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
So Deborah, if you got Herschel's address, I need to get him to come down here to Florida and move into my house. I need some counseling from him. Thank you.
Well, I do have a question for everybody. What did you think of the bracelets?
Oh, let me tell you.
Cartier? That was my question.
Oh,
yeah.
The shackles.
Yes, that's a good point. Shackles.
I will say
that's what he did in the book. Shackles.
I will say when he first gave them to her, I was like, oh, how cute. But when the key was only in his position, I wanted to say glory. Now come on.
Chastity.
Right.
Not even
I
that.
thought
But let's
everything
go.
he does is symbolic to
Yes.
controlling.
Yes.
Let's go back to the dress when he
And she
said,
can't take them off.
Right.
but let's go back to the dress when he said, I don't want you to wear that for anybody but me.
Be it me.
I don't want you to wear it out. I mean, so it already, you know, so that to me was already what, well, it's been so many other things that control, but that was really controlling. And jealousy, again, you can look nice for me, but I don't want anybody else to look at you that way. So don't wear that unless you with me. I mean, it's just, it's all controlling. And like you said, imprisoned. So she goes from one prison to the next. Right. And then and they both are wardens, the mother and him, and they work together to control her.
Yeah, and I will say this, it did kind of give me a sense of compassion of how people get caught up in abusive relationships. I used to always think to myself, like, how could you let this happen? But if you think about, and all of us probably could contest to this, your parents are your most influential people in your lives. You get your you know, some of your behaviors, your gestures, your mannerisms, your decisions in life comes with your rearing. So imagine if you had a mother like Mary and also forced into a relationship with this controlling man. It's like it's almost not giving you an opportunity to break free and be a rational thinker. It's more comfortable and more at ease. And you know, if she does break out from them, think of the people that she would be disappointing. Her mother and Malcolm, you know, her boyfriend. That's a lot. So it definitely opened my eyes to have compassion for women who are I see you, Kendra, in abusive relationships, especially if it started out that young. Because I can't say I would have a strong mindset if I was in that situation. Now I will say this: my mama couldn't beat me in the shower with no 17. Now I'm not gonna fight my mama, but I will hug her tight so she would. I'm sorry. Now,
Keisha, that was a good point. That was a good point that you made. And sometimes, especially maybe as girlfriends, and you may find that happen with the girlfriend, you definitely try not to be judgmental. You know, when he grabbed her by the wrist, the first thing I was like, get out.
Yes.
But you know what? For every, like, our parents are our biggest influence, but for every child that sees their mother be abused, is half that are going to accept it, and it's half that's not going to accept it. And so when I talk to my girls, I always think, like, you've never heard me and your father argue. You've never heard us curse at each other. You've never heard us hit each other. If you bring anybody halfway to display those qualities, I've never been arrested, but I will. You know, and you want to talk about it because it may not resonate with me, but it resonates with some other maybe family members or somewhere down the line. So, you know, you don't want to isolate them or make them, you know, feel bad for what they're going through. But, you know, to get out it's hard because mind control is so easy, and it's easy to work with young people, whether it's an older, you know, an older woman, you know, getting a teenage boy, or vice versa. It's just easy to manipulate their mind. They hadn't seen anything. And even when I was in high school, you couldn't impress me with fast food. Like, you just couldn't, you know. But of course, you know, if I'm not mistaken, Deborah, I mean, didn't they have like a garbage bags or something black over their tinted windows? I mean, like the windows were tinted, like they were just, you know, she was just really, really, really trapped.
Yeah.
Was.
Have a telephone.
I'm sorry. Say that again, Molly Ray.
They didn't even have a telephone. So
that's a good point.
A teenager not having a telephone.
Yeah.
No, girl, I probably would have dated Malcolm just for the telephone. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not making light of anybody being abused, but I'm just saying, as a 17-year-old girl, I can't have a telephone. I got to stay out. I might have to take a hits.
A slap here, a slap there, but I get a telephone, right?
And it just goes to show. Alex, I'm gonna take your question, and then we're gonna close out with some closing remarks from Deborah King.
So I mean, to give a perspective, as someone who was in an abusive relationship for almost 6 months, control is the biggest thing. So in regards to Glory's relationship with Malcolm, is not necessarily, so being told that you can only wear that for someone else, that is like such a staple thing in abusive relationships. It's one of the number one things that is said to the abusee is you can only wear that for me. The shackles, so like when I read that specific passage, my heart stopped because I had the person I was in my relationship with had given me basically the same thing.
Wow.
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 So most abusers will have something that they give to the abusee that represent control. So in my case, it was a necklace. In Glory's case, it was shackles, basically, the bracelet that made a noise that would remind her that she belonged to him. So in an abusive relationship, a lot of the times, the person who's being abused understands that what is happening is not necessarily correct or right, but they start beginning to believe that they deserve the abuse that they're receiving. That didn't hurt that much, or that cut didn't go as deep as it could have, or the gun that's pointing at my head is not loaded, and things like that. So one of the things that I want to thank Deborah for is showing what an abusive relationship could look like, because for young women, young men, who I would like fully recommend to read this book, they get to it's a black and white depiction of what an abusive relationship could look like.
Yes.
It's mild. Like I will tell you from my experience, this situation is very mild.
Oh.
Like, you slaps on the faces, I would have loved to have just dealt with that. So that's one thing I really wanted to like really push through this conversation and for this book is thank you to Deborah for depicting a abusive relationship that is the starting grounds for an abusive relationship. So, because that's something that when I was doing my research and when I was writing my book, I wanted to, like, I couldn't really find people who talked about abuse at the beginning of it. They only talked about it at the end of it or while they were in it. So thank you, Deborah, for showing that abuse doesn't start with a punch in the face. Abuse starts with the controlling and the manipulation and the fighting with parents and that kind of stuff. So, thank you for that.
Whoa, well, hey, heavy. I like to end on a light note. I will say this before we close out. Now, Molly, where'd you get that perfume from? Because I got to know. Got that Herschel perfume. They are talking about it in the chat room, so I have to bring it back up.
You know what? I got this. This was a freebie at Deborah King's book signing.
Okay. So they are asking for these Herschel stamps. So Deborah, you may want to write something in the chat room before we close out. But that may be a little, guys. She's gonna share something. If not, she'll share something in part 2. That'll give you a reason to come back and tune in to part 2. But Deborah, before we close out, I do want to pass the mic to you, but I do want to let everyone know we're going to do the conclusion of Glory Bishop, which is chapters 14 through 26. We're going to come back August 30th, 7 p.m., same place, same time, and discuss the second part of this Glory Bishop. So, Deborah, I wanted to ask you, what should we prepare for? Any remarks you want us to, something you want us to keep our minds focused on as we go to the concluding part of Glory Bishop?
Let me think. I just drank a whole bottle of wine, so I'm a little loopy.
We know.
Let's see. You're going to meet Glory's whole family when she goes down south.
Oh, great. Okay.
And her relatives I like to think they're entertaining.
That's the South.
We're going to learn a lot about Malcolm.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Can't wait.
Yeah, you're going to learn a lot more about Malcolm, and you're going to meet Malcolm's mother.
Okay, I think she was dead. Okay.
No, Glory's father is dead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you're going to meet Malcolm's mother.
Okay.
Wow. We got something to look forward to and something to find out. So guys, again, I can't thank you enough for taking time to join me and Ms. Deborah King, and those of you on Facebook watching us live, to discuss this book. Very well written, very deep.
Good read, Deborah.
That, some people don't like to touch. And it is a love story, but definitely in a different way. So I can't wait to read the concluding part. And I hope everyone is able to come back and join us for part 2. And I'm glad to hear nobody cheated, or at least they didn't admit that they cheated, that they read.
Okay, so
I almost did. I almost did. I had to stop. I was like, I can't be a hypocrite. So, yeah, guys, until next time, let's find out what's going on with Glory. We're going to have to keep her in prayer. Our prayer, not her prayer. All right, you guys have a good night, and I'll see you.
All right, good night. Thank you, Deborah. Good read.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Good night.